It's another week in crowdfunding.
Yeah, another big week.
That means it's another episode of Crowd Control. Yep. Welcome, everyone. We're here to talk about what's going on crowdfunding, what's been going on, and what's about to go on in the world of crowdfunding.
That's true. We got a bunch of games launching this week. Before we do, though, get into those games, I want to mention, not crowdfunding related, but GenCon is coming up.
It is.
So a lot of these games that we talk about throughout this month will possibly be at GenCon, available to demo or preview or just look at.
True.
If you're going. Also, I'm going to plug this. We're doing a whole Road to GenCon.
Yeah, it's called On the Road to GenCon. That's Ryan's cue to edit in the logo right above his head.
So just take a look at those videos. It's not crowdfunding stuff. It's going to be all about stuff that's going to be available at GenCon in some form or another. So be sure to take a look at that. But today we are here to talk about crowdfunding.
Let's start with Nestlings.
Yeah, that's one that's already running. It's about halfway done at this point.
And it's got birds in it. It's not the first game that we're going to be talking about.
No, it is the first game. It's not the last game.
It is true. That's true. It's not the last game. It's one of the many games.
There's two bird games coming out this week. What are the chances of that? But
one of them is Nestlings. And like Ryan said, this has been running. There is some content out there on the interwebs if you want to take a look at some gameplay. But this is an asymmetric game where you're going out collecting things to feed your nestlings, right?
And it's got everything you'd want in that kind of game. It's a lower to medium weight game. It's family friendly. Yeah. It's got adorable artwork, cute little minis, and you're feeding your little baby nest. You're going out and trying to go to these different biomes to collect food and bring that food back, and depending on what bird you are, you want to feed different things to your birds. It's really cute looking game.
There's some dice. It's not like a dice chucking game, though. Yeah. You're rolling the dice and then you're placing them around the boards in these different sort of environments in order to, I guess, put more. I think the resources go out at the beginning of each round, but you're collecting these resources to feed your birds.
Yeah.
Now, that's nice and pleasant. Let's talk about a not so pleasant, but probably fun game called Perch. Perch is a game about birds, but it's a nasty game.
Yeah, this one we've actually gotten to play. Emily from the channel played it. We actually did a video on this one, and we're going to probably have a more in-depth look coming as well. This is a mean game. This one's from Inside Up, and you're playing birds who are not nice to each other. It's a very aggressive take that style game.
It's got some take that to it. We don't want to push it
a medium amount
too much, but there is some take that to this, based on Emily's reports anyway. Area control, there's all these different little perches, if you will, where you're placing your birds, but you're actually placing not just your own birds, but other people's birds at the same time. And these different perches or these spots are going to have points to be scored, but also powers. And they bring into, there may be one that lets you control an owl, and the owl does nasty things like owls do. But it sounds like an interesting little game. We're actually going to have more content on the channel. If you're watching this on Monday, we'll probably have a video posting on Tuesday. Very soon, if you want to learn a little bit more about Perch.
Yeah, so those are our two. I almost said board games.
Bird games. Our two bird games.
We've got a few more that are coming out. That's again, like I said, this is a big week. But before I get to those, I do want to throw it over to our special guest for today. And this is, you might recognize him from the Board Game Spotlight. This is Derek Funkhauser.
Root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. What's going on, everybody? It's Derek with the Board Game Spotlight, and I'm here to tell you about what excites me on crowdfunding, and that is a game called Lords of Baseball. Now, I love just crowdfunding in general. I love it because I enjoy watching designers and publishers bring a game or an idea to the platform and for consumers to make it a reality, to see their dream come true. And that is no truer than the game Lords of Baseball. Now, you might have played some baseball board games in the past, Baseball Highlights 2045, Stratomatic, Bottom of the Ninth, Dead Ball Baseball. Those are all very different because Lords of Baseball is going to put you in control of a franchise in the 20th century at the height of baseball, when it became our nation's pastime, and you are going to use cards. It's an economic Euro card-driven strategy game, in which case you're going to do every facet of baseball. You're going to manage a team. You're going to manage the front office. You're going to manage fans and media in the stadium. You're going to try to win games. Like, there's nothing about baseball that's not touched in Lords of Baseball, and that's what excites me about it so much. You've even got winter meetings and the winter dealings. Like all year round, the game is about baseball. So if that sounds like something that excites you like it excites me, I think you have to take a look at it. I think it's going to be an absolute grand slam of a game. And if you're not a fan of baseball, I think it's going to be a good an economic Euro game to play. So take a look at it and go Cubs go.
Yes, that was our friend Derek Funkhauser.
Big baseball
course,
fan.
Of course, he's talking about a baseball game.
Yeah, that doesn't
right?
surprise me
Derek
at all.
is he has many loves, but baseball is one of them for sure.
All right, so let's get on to what else is launching this week. If you're watching this on Monday, these are going to be brand new campaigns. One that I'm really excited about is Stone Spine Architects.
Yeah.
This is from Thunderworks Games. This is another game in the role-player universe, although at this point there's been such a wide variety
Mechanically
of mechanical games. So this is not like role player. This is as different from role player as anything. In fact, this feels to me more like cartographers, in that you're not building a map, but you're building a dungeon, and you're going to be taking out drafting these cards and placing them in front of you to build this dungeon, but you're trying to fulfill all these different scoring conditions. So that's where it kind of feels like cartographers to me.
The scoring conditions part. This is absolutely not a roll and write. Like Ryan said, you're drafting cards and building a really what looks to me like a very cool looking top-down dungeon or labyrinth, if you will. Sort of inspired by the Minotaurs, I believe.
The Minotaurs are the best labyrinth makers, so you're going to be trying to throw your hand into that ring and hat into that ring and see how well you do.
Your horns, whatever.
Throw your horns. Yeah, I mean they've unleashed a consistent string of hits. So to me, if you're a fan of the role player series, if you're a fan of cartographers or any of the other games, in fact they have one coming out of GenCon as well. Dawn of Ulos. Is coming soon as well. So they've been busy over there at Thunderworks.
They have, and they do. They are consistent. Like there's not a game I can think from Thunderworks I'm like, eh.
No, they've all been a lot of fun.
They're all quite good. The next one I know very little about. It's Sword and Sorcery.
Yeah.
Abyssal
Legends.
Abyssal Legends. This is the
Abyssal
latest
Legends.
expansion for Sword and Sorcery. If you know Sword and Sorcery, it's a giant cooperative dungeon crawling sort of game.
The latest, and I also think this is the last.
Oh, is this the final one?
This is the climax. I think it offers.
Unless y'all back it for like $3 million, then I bet they'll do another.
They might. Well, yeah, we'll see, I guess.
If thousands of people line up and give money, I think they might come up with another.
They might do it. Well, at least this is the end of the storyline.
Sure.
We'll say that.
Sure.
This has been building up. I think this is the third or fourth game in this particular line. And like David said, it is a cooperative dungeon crawler. This is character-driven, character-focused game where you're going to be doing all the stuff that you'd expect to do in this game. You're leveling up characters, you're equipping them with gear, but it does have a lot of really unique mechanics. It's been years since I played the very first box of Sword and Sorcery when that first came out. Yeah, it has, but it's really unique and it's a lot of fun to play, and it's simpler than a lot of those dungeon crawler games out there, and it is more heavily focused on that narrative side, which I think is why a lot of people are lining up to see the finale of this game. It's kind of been building up to this for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the series, you probably already know it. But if you aren't and you're not familiar with it, but you do consider yourself a dungeon crawling fan or a wannabe dungeon crawling fan, check it out.
Definitely. This one, you'll be able to get everything you want. You'll be able to start from the beginning and play through. You need the base box to play through the new stuff, but it's going to be all available. You'll be able to get everything you ever want for this game on
the last one I want to talk about is kind of an interesting thing because it's called Wolves.
Yeah.
It's not called The Wolves.
Yeah, it's a different game.
Totally different game. So it's an interesting name. It's called Wolves, and this one is a cooperative, semi-cooperative game.
Semi-cooperative.
Tell us a little bit about it, because you know more about it.
I do. So this is from Coyote and Crow, Connor Alexander. You might know that name because they released a role-playing game that just did. It did
really well. Yeah.
And their whole brand is kind of built around indigenous stories. They're kind of telling those stories in a unique way, and they did that with Coyote and Crow. They're doing that again in Wolves, and it's a very interesting setup where you're playing these different groups of people who are trying to survive. And you're trying to collect food that you need to collect over the course of the turns in order to survive whatever the winter or whatever. And you're doing that through hand management, resource management, trying to collect these different foods. But what's really interesting, I think, is that semi-cooperative nature where you are encouraged to help out your neighbors. You're encouraged to freely give them resources, and you don't really get anything in return. It's not a barter system. It's not a trade system. However, you do get reputation. The other tribes, or I think that, I don't know if that's what they're called. I said the word tribe.
Sure.
But they look up to you, and eventually, if you, by the end of the game, have contributed the most, have earned the most prestige, you become the leader. And so that's kind of your goal. But at the same time, if any one faction starves and does not survive, everybody loses.
Yeah,
so there's a little bit of a balance there.
If you're watching this and you don't happen to know what semi-cooperative means, and it does mean different things for different games, but in this case, it means you can all lose together, but only one of you will win. So it's not a cooperative, so you're not all winning. You're all losing, or one person's winning.
Yeah, this game reminds me a lot of Tendaya. I know that game was gaining in a lot of popularity. People should have been receiving that game over the last year. This is like a simplified family-style version of that game. They say family weight. So this is a game that you can play with pretty much anybody.
Yeah, they definitely wanted to shift over to board games from the role-playing game background to bring more family weight and accessible experiences to the table.
I mean, I'm interested to see how this goes. That's why I wanted to mention that. I'm interested to see how this goes. I like what the company is doing. I don't think they even have a BGG page for this game, though.
No, not yet. Hopefully they will soon. I mean, it's launching tomorrow, so hopefully it will be on BGG soon.
This might be the first time you're ever hearing about it, but definitely check that one out as well.
I also want to talk about The Witcher, just because I want to wedge The Witcher into just about any video
I've been teaching The Witcher to everybody. That is the hottest Kickstarter we've backed.
We're not going to talk about The Witcher. I'm just joking. However, if they do run another campaign of any type, we will be covering it.
Oh, for sure.
And look for more Witcher content when we get a chance to do it, because we are, like Ryan said, doing a bunch of GenCon content right now. The Witcher's not among that right now, so whenever we can find the time, we will get it in there.
Absolutely.
But that wraps another episode of Crowd Control. Thanks for joining us this week. Will we be next week?
We might. I'm going on vacation. Not really vacation. I'm traveling
He's going to be out
of
town.
So
we probably
see.
won't. We may not have another episode, but whether we do or not, we'll be back again the week after.
Never not have another episode? We'll have another episode.
Not next week, maybe. Anyway, you get the idea. We'll see you next week, or the week after, or the week after that.
Bye, everybody.